Joining me now, Republican Congressman from Georgia, Representative Tom Graves. Congressman Graves, in that statement by Speaker Boehner, was he talking to the American public or trying to convince Tea Party guys like you that he wasn't talking to the president about ending the tax cuts from the Bush years?
Well, I don't know at any time that he has spoken of raising taxes. Republicans are against raising taxes. And it isn't about the Tea Party. It's about America. It's about preserving America's future. And the Tea Party, I'm going to tell you, that is a group of Americans that just love our heritage, love what we stand for, love the foundation, the principles, and they're willing to be very vocal about it right now. It's such an important time in our history. It's certainly needed.
And I think that's admirable, but do you also love seniors who need Social Security? Do you love working people that need Medicaid and people that have paid into their Social Security? I mean, I appreciate you loving America, but do you love Americans that have to survive in America?
Well, I don't imagine you've ever been to a Tea Party rally, but there's a wide spectrum of Americans there, and I'm sure many of them receive Social Security benefits or Medicare, Medicaid. It is America well represented. And, you know, if we're talking about preserving America, it is preserving all of America,
right,
and not the Democratic talking points of always going back to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. None of that is in jeopardy if the president would listen to some of the plans that are in place right now that the Republicans have put out there. Common sense. I mean, cut, cap, and balance. How much more common sense is that than cutting the deficit now?
You want the president to sit and listen and talk to you and do what? Try to work out some compromise? But you're the guy that says this is no time for compromise. No compromise, my way or the highway. Look at what you said. This is you. You wrote on your website, you know when we hear the word compromise. This is Graves talking. You. When we hear the word compromise on Capitol Hill, that's what's got us in this mess over the last several decades. This is no time for compromise. That doesn't sound like somebody that loves America and wants the president to be reasonable.
Hey, this is no time to compromise. Why are we compromising America's future and compromising spending cuts and getting our fiscal house in order? Why do we have to say, well, let's do it over 10 or 12, 15 years? Let's deal with it today.
Yeah, your way
I have an 8-year-old daughter.
Your way or the highway. I mean, well, let me ask you, what would be so intolerable to the seniors that you say are in the Tea Party, to those that have Medicaid and Medicare in the Tea Party, to say we've got to put on the table talking about tax cuts for corporate jets? I'm sure you don't have a lot of corporate jet owners at your rallies.
Well, first of all, I'll remind you that it was the president that brought up cutting Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid benefits. He was the one that put that on the table.
I don't know that he ever said benefits. I think he said he put on the table the discussion. I don't know if he said benefits, but go ahead and try to get to my question. We've talked about corporate jets.
Right. We have talked about cutting the deficit, capping spending, and balancing the budget. And that is going to take a lot of tough decisions.
As long as we don't talk about ending the tax cuts from Bush, as long as we don't talk about closing the loopholes, as long as we don't talk about corporate jets. So as long as we don't bother the rich, we can talk.
Well, let me address it because I'm one of just a few Republicans that voted against that you're addressing. I voted against it in December, and your president, Barack Obama, signed it into law. So how can you stand there and be against what your president just signed into law when I actually voted against it?
I disagree with.
But I voted against it.
Well, if you voted against it, your party certainly did it. But then if you voted against it, then you can take this opportunity to tell your party right now, I voted against millionaires, oil companies, corporate jet owners, hedge fund managers, and that should be on the table with the president. Go ahead.
I've made it clear to you
that tell Boehner and them publicly, put it on the table because you voted against it.
Thank you. Well, my record's real clear how I voted, but what I'd like for you to share with the American people is, are you opposed to balancing the budget as Barack Obama is? Because that's all we stand for right now. Can you answer that? That's it. Very simple.
Well, balancing the budget, it seems to me that a very prominent member of the Reagan administration talked about this balance the budget amendment. Are you aware of that? Are you aware of what he said? Let me show you, so you will know exactly where the language that Bruce Bartlett, who was an aide to Ronald Reagan, said about balance the budget amendment. Quite possibly the stupidest constitutional amendment I think I've ever seen. It looks like it was drafted by a couple of interns on the back of a napkin. That's what Mr. Bartlett, who worked for Ronald Reagan, not for President Obama. He said it was one of the stupidest things he ever said.
So Barack Obama's following the advice of the Reagan administration nation now? Is that what you're telling me?
No.
Look, that is the #1 thing that we need to do right now in our nation. 49 of the 50 states have balanced budgets.
Mr. Obama didn't put that up. I put it up, and I'm asking you. You brought up balanced budget. I'm telling you what Mr. Bartlett said.
Well, the president is opposed to it just as Mr. Bartlett is. So apparently they are working off the same sheet. I am for it. The American people are for it. 49 of the 50 states have balanced budget amendments. I think the federal government should have it as well.
And you do not think, again, that even though you claim here tonight that you voted against corporate welfare, that corporate welfare should be part of the discussions with the president in these meetings on the deficit?
I am for cutting spending, capping the spending, and balancing the budget. All of that is a part of it.
Are you for talking about it in these meetings? Why vote against it and then take it off the table now, Congressman Graves?
Look, let's just put it in perspective. You cut all those loopholes out, it's not going to we're going to have $14 trillion in debt tomorrow still. Let's deal with the bigger issue, Al. Let's get off the Democrat talking points.
Well, I can show you.
It is the debt and the deficit of today.
If you let the Bush tax cuts run out, you have a huge amount of money to work with. But again, it's not what you say. There's the graph right there. $424 billion you cut into if you let the tax cuts just expire. But, Congressman, what I'm saying is I'm a preacher. I know the difference between talking the talk, walking the walk. You claim you voted for it, but you don't want to walk with it because you have an opportunity right now on national TV to say to your party and to your speaker, put it on the table. I voted against it. That's what I'm telling everybody.
What I want on the table and what I made clear is cut the deficit now, cap the spending, and balance the budget. That's the answer to the deficit crisis and the debt crisis we have in this nation. If we're to preserve America and her future, it's going to take big, bold proposals. That is big. Compromise and deal, that is not big.
And
we need bold proposals.
We cannot ever talk about dealing with the rich and the corporate jets, but grandma and working people, you are expendable.
As long as you're on the air, there'll be a lot of talk about it.
Thank you for your time this evening.